Good evening, everybody. I'm Chuck Havard. Can everybody hear me? I'm Chuck Havard. I'm a candidate for Jasper County Sheriff. First of all, I appreciate you guys coming. It's always good to see people get involved and have a difference in their government. In this case here, particularly, who's going to be your next county sheriff? You know, I tell people all the time, a county sheriff is a very important job for everybody. We depend on our county sheriff to protect our property, protect our family, and among many other things. So to tell you a little bit about me, I'm 49. I live about 8 miles south up here on 62. I graduated high school in '93 from Kirbyville. Shortly after that, I attended the Angelina College Police Academy in Lufkin. Become a police officer when I was 21, went to work for the Kirbyville Police Department. I was in '96, which feels like a very long time ago. And so I spent a year there. Then I went to the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. I was a deputy sheriff for about 2 years. And in 1998, one of my biggest dreams in life, I wanted to be a DPS officer. So in '98, I became a DPS trooper, and I worked at Jasper County, Orange County, several counties in southeast Texas. And about 4 years into it, I decided to join the promotional arena of that agency and become a highway patrol sergeant. And some of my responsibilities there were I was in charge of the highway patrol operations in San Jacinto County, Trinity County, Jefferson County, Orange County, and then I transferred back to Beaumont when I was in charge of the Jefferson County Highway Patrol operations, all keeping my house here in Jasper County. A lot of times renting another house. We didn't make any money, so it was always a struggle back then with the DPS. And the last several years, they kind of upped our pay a little bit, so it helped some. But anyway, in 2016, I promoted to lieutenant. I was in charge of our Highway Patrol district, the 8 counties in our Highway Patrol District 2B. And so I stayed there for 25 years. I have a bachelor's degree in college, graduated from McNeese. So I went back to school when I was 35. So anybody out there in school, stay in school because you don't want to go back to college when you're 35, I promise you. I'm a FBI Trilogy Award recipient. I'm a Master Peace Officer through TCOL. I have about 3,600 clock hours of police training. And in a nutshell, that's a little bit about me. And so I do think that I can provide some effective leadership and improve our Sheriff's Department operations. And I'll be happy to stay after here. I think my time's about up, but I'll hang out. And if y'all got any questions, let me know. And I appreciate you voting and your support. We're going to make a difference in the county. Thank y'all.
Good evening. Thank y'all all for coming out to this great event. It's a very important event. My name is Duncan, and I'm running for Jasper County Sheriff. In 1996 is when I got my jailer's license, so that's how far I go back. But it actually goes back further than that. My mother and daddy he took a break from working construction and guided on Lake Livingston. So they owned and operated the Waterwood Marina. And in that course of action, the sheriff over there used to come get the bankroll from them and take that to the bank. In the course of doing that, he used to take me along with him to get ice cream and a hamburger. And that's where my love of law enforcement came from. It intrigued me as a young kid, and it's always intrigued me ever since then. So I started out as a jailer. I started out as a jailer for Jasper County. I've worked as a jailer, I've worked as a deputy, I've worked as a patrol supervisor, and I've worked as an investigator for Jasper County, and also as a narcotics investigator for this county. And I'm currently working as chief deputy. The license that I have says peace officer. I have every kind of certification that you can think of. I'm also a SWAT officer. I'm an operator for the SWAT team. So to introduce or to fix the problem or make it better for Jasper County Sheriffs, I come up with the first Jasper County SWAT team to combat active shooters for that purpose. It took me 7 years to get it off the ground because the mindset that we was all in was nobody wanted a bunch of teenage ninja turtles running around. That was actually stated to me. But when Sandy Hook occurred, that got people's attention. That come to me, and they asked me to get that team off the ground. And I personally went to school board after school board after school board advocating for that to be implemented, to have help. So I know what it's like. I've actually been in a couple of different shootouts, one of which was the latest in Newton that lasted for up to 8 hours. So 750 rounds was fired in that shootout. In over 20 years of law enforcement, I learned more in that day than I ever have. Got the leg to prove it. This is not just a paycheck for me. This is a God-led passion. And I tell these deputies, you're deputies right now, you can tell the difference between somebody doing it for a paycheck and somebody doing it for a passion, because you put your whole heart in it. This sheriff's office was a goal of mine from day one. It was my dream to become sheriff of Jasper County. So therefore, in doing that, with that mindset in my mind, every time I dealt with a situation or seen a sheriff, and I've worked for 6 different sheriffs, worked around a pass or more. Every time they was in an incident, I watched, I learned. Every time I was personally involved in an incident, I learned every time. I seen what they did that worked, seen what they didn't that didn't work. And I want to remind you that I'm the chief deputy for Jasper County Sheriff's Office. I am not the boss. I work for the sheriffs of the Jasper County. I work for Mitchell Newman. And he's been very loyal to my family, and I'm very loyal to my boss, as I'm very loyal to each and every one of you. We gain our whole career by 2 words: protect, serve. And if you don't do both of those words, you're not doing your job in completion. When I work narcotics for this county, and that means you work everything under the sun, from burglaries to thefts to murders. Like Scott said, 99.9% of all your crimes in this county are derived from narcotics. Every family is touched by narcotics, but every family is also touched by mental health, by theft, by burglary. That's just one aspect, but it's all tied in together. So you have to have proactivity. And as chief, I learned so many more aspects of the job as a business side. There's a budget that we have to improve. There's things that these deputies, your deputies, go through on a daily basis. Right now, currently at full staff, which we have not been full staff in years. Very seldom have we say we've got full staff, just for a couple of months. But as of right now, a deputy is responsible for 319 square miles. They're responsible for 7,458 citizens per officer. That's on a 2021 census, and we all know the population has grown since then. So being sheriff of Jasper County is more than just managing people. It's making sure that the sheriff's office stays humble, keeps the humanity in it, and the professionalism, and strives every day to make it better. Because sheriff, as I learned from watching 6 different sheriffs, you don't take it off. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I've literally and factually been on call since 2008. You can ask my wife. And I, at this time, want to thank my wife and family, because they serve just like I do, and I've had great support from them. This is a passion for me. I want to go the own way and make the sheriff's office one we can all be proud of. And that's got several issues we got to address. But I've started off as a jailer for this sheriff's office, and I've worked my way all the way to the top. As far as I know, if elected sheriff, I'll be the first sheriff of Jasper County that's done that, that's worked every aspect of your sheriff's office, that has a complete working knowledge of what it takes for a sheriff's office to function, and we've got to get back to being proactive. I'm a God-fearing man, I'm God-led. I'm not a perfect human being and not a perfect person. I don't know everything. My grandpa taught me at a young age, he said, never know everything about something, but try your best to know something about everything, because everything comes into play in life. And being the sheriff of a county, what I've learned for watching 6 different sheriffs, it's not just about being sheriff. It's about being a community leader. And it's important to have community support, because you can be whatever kind of sheriff you want to be, but if you don't have your community support, you're nothing. And that's very important to me, is community. I'm a DARE officer. I went to Florida to learn to be a DARE officer, to be a DARE instructor. We took over the DARE program here in Jasper County, and that is very important to me, because that's a front-line battle. That's an avenue that we can use to get to these children before the drug dealers do. In this county, I have found kids in dog cages. in your county. That's been real. That's not something out of a fiction story. That's something that I've personally experienced, and that happens right here in Jasper County. So these issues are real and important. Also, the sexual assaults and the burglaries and the thefts, getting bicycles and getting kittens out of a tree, all of it means the same. It's got to be addressed, because if you call in with your bicycle stolen, that's important to you, and it needs to be important to us. And that's why it's a passion for me, and I have a passion for being better. And my only political ambition is the sheriff's office. I have nothing past that point. That's a priority to me, and I want to leave it better than I found it. And it needs to be better. We need to go in the different directions. We need to get back to being proactive. And as your Jasper County Sheriff, that's one thing that I will make priority. So at this time, I appreciate each and every one of you for coming. I appreciate your support for the sheriff's office that you have now, because these deputies go out every day, and they serve. And they serve to the best of their abilities. And that's for just one thing. If you pat them on the back or say thank you, that means the world to them, because that helps morale and gives them a little boost. So I appreciate you doing that. And at this time, I ask for your vote, support for your next Jasper County Sheriff. Thank you very much.
The only written question we have is on leadership. And the question was on leadership and communication. They're important. How are each of you going to lead and work with your fellow, it says officers, so it's more of a law enforcement question, so I'm going to, anybody else?
Yeah, I'll give you my definition of leadership. It's several traits. First of all, credibility. We have to be credible. We have to be efficient. If you elect me as your sheriff, if there's a mistake, I'm going to look you in the eyes, and I'm going to tell you there's been a mistake made, but I will fix it. So there's a lot as far as many traits of leadership. You have to you have to be credible. You have to always tell the truth, and there's a lot of things that go into leadership as far as with our partners, state, federal partners. And so you elect me as your sheriff of Jasper County, we will always have the resources we need in this county.
So I was taught at a young age when I started off following my dad's footsteps. My dad was an electrician, instrumentation. So I wanted to honor him and follow in his footsteps and learn a trade. So I started off as a helper, and I worked all the way up to a journeyman. And one day I got the phone call that I was going to be made for. And I called my dad and I told him. He said, "Get your butt home." Well, that worried me because I didn't know what to think. So as soon as I got home, because my dad was electrical superintendent for Brown and Root, he said, "What you got to remember as a supervisor, son, it's not your job to make yourself better. It's your job to make your employees better." So my definition of leadership is that. It's what I've always tried to apply as a supervisor, leading by example. In the law enforcement world, there's so many different moving parts to that, because there's so many things you have to consider when motivating a deputy or a law enforcement officer. Leading from experiences, I've worked with the United States Marshal. I was on DP's Texas Fugitive Task Force of the United States Marshal Service. I've worked with DEA Task Force. I've worked with ICE. I've worked with the Secret Service. I've worked with the FBI. So I've got to see a vast ocean of experiences and how they do things and what works and what don't work. And I've worked with a lot of different people. There's several people in this room that I've worked with and worked alongside of them. And I'll go into a room with any of them. But we got to keep ourselves humble as a leader, because there's several different ways you can teach somebody to do something, not just simply put somebody in jail. Example: if you run across a narcotics addicted, an addict, sure, we can put them in jail. But what I try to teach these deputies, what I've learned from my experience, is you need to go further, because you're not going to completely pull the problem up by the roots. Plant a seed. Make this a passion. Don't take the humanity out of this job. And I've also tried to teach them, if you see somebody out in their yard raking their leaves, stop and talk to them. Get to know them so they can get to know you and trust you. I was taught that as a young deputy. by older deputies. That's called a force multiplier. That's what I try to teach them. So I try to lead by example. As a chief, I'm still a working person. I still investigate cases. I still work narcotics when I can. I still patrol. I still go out and do quality control. I come out at nighttime, I monitor the radio, and I let them know it. But when they do something good, I tell them, hey, this works. Example, in doing what I'm doing campaigning, I've got several compliments on the deputies running through at nighttime, shining their alley lights on houses. That's something that I instituted as a chief, because that's something that I was told. And I called them and said, hey, good job. It's working. Keep it up. But just the other night, I had to let a deputy go, because South End deputy had somebody at gunpoint. And one of your deputies chose to sit at the Kirbyville sub for 2 hours playing on his phone. He's no longer working for us. But as a supervisor, you have to make your people better. You have to keep them quality control, and you have to keep them grounded. You have to know when to rule with a heavy hand and know when to have compassion. Because it's my job as a supervisor to make them better for you. And that's my definition of a supervisor. Lead by example, to always hold yourself accountable. And at the end of the day, you got to realize as a supervisor, it's your fault. So I'm responsible. I call them my deputies. Because if one of them gets hurt or killed, I'm responsible. So I go out sometimes and watch them on traffic stops. Correct them on small little things like approaching a car with a flashlight in your gun hand. And tweak them to make them better so they can better serve and hold them accountable. Because in my opinion, that has not been done. It needs to be a priority. But you have to remember to lead by example. Go out and work with them, be in the trenches with them, and let them know that you've been there, you've done it. You know, as a deputy, you go from 30 minutes on shift to having a gun pointed at you, you point your gun at somebody. And then the next call you go to, it may be dealing with a molested child or a battered woman. And then the next call you go to is a mother and child that's been killed in a wreck. And then the next call you go to is a burglary, a theft. And then right after that, another wreck with a fatality. And you have to go do those notifications. So you have a range of emotions to consider. And that's not a shift that's something out of a fiction book. That's something that we've all experienced, and that shift I'm talking about is a 12-hour shift that I experienced as a deputy. I did 3 death notifications in one 12-hour shift. The last one, I sat down at the end of the road for 30 minutes, trying to give that family 1 more minute of normalcy, 1 more minute of peace, because I knew that when I rolled up there, I was fixing to destroy their lives forever. Experiences like that in this county, I'm going to pull from to be a better supervisor and a better sheriff. So my definition is primarily lead by example. Thank you.